You asked, and we heard you, America.
Real America's Voice is coming to iHeartMedia.
Yes, Real America's Voice is now breaking through the white noise of the mainstream media.
Just download the iHeart app, and you'll have all of us right at your fingertips.
Welcome to America's Voice Live. Our Real America's Voice team is going places others won't.
We need to take cover that was incoming into Israeli territory.
To show you what they don't want you to see.
It's still a disaster. What's the latest?
They call these street releases. You've got hundreds of people being dropped off. It's getting worse.
We're the nation's fastest growing news program for a reason.
Real journalism.
They're all marching down to the White House.
Sounds to me, Ben, like they won't be happy until Israel doesn't exist.
Real American news.
America is under chemical warfare attack. Fentanyl is the weapon.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
I appreciate you guys very, very much.
This is America's Voice Live with Steve Gruber.
And welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber. Today, it's Wednesday, the 26th of February. Thank you for being here. Let's get to the day's top stories. The Trump administration and President Trump have been working to get rid of Joe Biden's disastrous climate change policies, and other countries are taking notice, some following suit. Also, the IRS is cleaning up their workforce, firing over 6,000 employees, which may put additional pressure on taxpayers during tax season. We'll see what that means. And then later, officials at the Department of Education have been calling for the destigmatization of child sex work and want us to understand youth engaged in survival sex work. It's quite a story. We'll get to that coming up, but we start here. Another very busy day for President Trump and his team as he was delivering everything he could again on his promises from the campaign and so much more. This is the most amazing series of events over the last year, just over a month, as he hammers away at getting the things that he has promised, right? And also taking time to deliver some political scores. Yeah, he delivered on that too. Listen to this.
At the outset of your administration, sir, you committed to ending the weaponization of government, to holding those accountable who participated in the weaponization of government.
Hold it. This is a good one. Is everybody listening? Deranged Jack Smith. We're going to call it the Deranged Jack Smith signing or bill. Go ahead.
One law firm that provided pro bono legal services to the special counsel's office under Jack Smith's leadership was Covington and Burling. As a result of those actions, we're now going to be suspending and putting under review the security clearances for the attorneys and employees at that firm who worked with Jack Smith's team. And we're going to continue holding the people who were responsible for the weaponization of government, who supported it, accountable for what they did.
And you'll be doing this with other firms as time goes by, right?
We're looking at sort of the whole panoply of options.
The weaponization of our system by law firms, even pro bono work they're doing just in order to clog up government, stop government. And nobody knows about it more than me. And hopefully that'll never happen again.
So the Covington and Burlington?
Covington and Burlington.
Okay.
Mr. President, may I ask you a question about Europe? So long term, do you plan to maintain the number of U.S. troops stationed?
I just want to savor this one, please. Who would like this pen? Hey, why don't you send it to Jack Smith? A deranged person.
Yeah. Stop asking me questions. I'm going to savor this woman, and hey, give this pen to Jack Smith. This is just the latest round of security clearances getting pulled, by the way, and I dare say it will not be the last. The president has the right to take the clearances, and he's making it happen all the time. In fact, it began on the 20th of January when he was inaugurated. He canceled the clearances of all 51 members of the intelligence community that lied about the Hunter Biden laptop and its authenticity. That included former CIA Director John Brennan and former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. Boom. A couple days later, he ripped the clearance away of former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Boom. And since then, it's been a number of others, including the former chair of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, former Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, New York AG Letitia James, former NSA Director Jake Sullivan, and so many more. The president focused on reducing the price of medical care in the country as well as he moved from piece to piece. This is what it is like to be around Donald Trump these days, addressing one issue after another, and the cost of medical care on his mind, especially for those that can least afford it. Listen to this.
We have an executive order for your attention. In 2019, during your previous administration, you imposed price transparency requirements on the healthcare industry. This was a significant driver in lowering the costs of healthcare during your first administration. Those requirements were largely reversed by the Biden administration. Now we're reinstating
or terminated, right?
Terminated. We're strengthening them. The idea is to make price transparency a key aspect of healthcare policy in America.
It's one of the biggest things that can happen to reducing costs in healthcare. It takes a little while to kick in, but Biden ended it immediately upon coming in, which was a terrible travesty, in my opinion, and we're going to start it up, and we've actually made it even stronger.
Yes, sir.
By a couple of major factors, right? Anybody have any question on price transparency? It allows people to go out and negotiate and price, and you're not allowed to even talk about it when you go into a hospital or see a doctor, and this allows you to go out and talk about it.
You know, I've always wondered about this. I'll bet you have too. You look at the pricing at a hospital. Let's say it's an MRI, whatever it is, right? An MRI. It costs whatever it costs, but yet it's priced differently. Sometimes there'll be 100 different prices for one item. Could be more than that. If you have a certain insurance coverage, it's $10. Another insurance coverage is $100. If you have no insurance coverage at all, it could be several $1,000s. None of that makes sense. An MRI costs whatever an MRI costs. That's true of everything other procedure and product in the hospital. It's time for some simplicity and some understanding so that those of us getting billed can comprehend what's really happening. Now, from there, it was on to the economy and defending American industries and workers from being flooded by foreign imports of natural resources, especially the ones we have in spades, like copper, for example. That was a big conversation yesterday. Here it is.
Copper is a critical material, and the supply of copper is vital to our national security. In recent years, we've dealt with a significant issue of the dumping of foreign copper into the American market. That significantly impacted the domestic production and manufacture of copper and copper materials. This executive order charges your Secretary of Commerce with starting the process to potentially impose tariffs or other trade barriers to prevent this ongoing dumping of copper and to protect the American manufacturer and production of copper.
It will have a big impact. Howard, do you want to say something about that?
Do you mind if I read one of your truths? So this is a truth that's about to go out. Like our steel and aluminum industries, our great American copper industry has been decimated by global actors attacking our domestic production. To build back our copper industry, I've requested my Secretary of Commerce and USTR to study copper imports and end unfair trade putting Americans out of work. Tariffs will help rebuild back our American copper industry and strengthen our national defense. American industries depend on copper, and they should be made in America. No exemptions. No exceptions. America First creates American jobs and protects our national security. It's time for copper to come home.
You know, I really enjoy the quality of the people around Donald Trump. Howard Lutnick, for example. I mean, here's a billionaire who could be out making more money and doing whatever, and he says, look, I'm going to give my time as the Secretary of Commerce. And he's on it. I mean, in places like my home state of Michigan, copper is a big deal. But all of these mines have been basically bankrupted, many of them around the country, whether it's copper or nickel or lead. Pick it, it doesn't matter, because of foreign imports. They just dump the product into America. Our people lose jobs, and we get oftentimes a lower quality product. It's a great move here by the president and by the Secretary of Commerce. And while we're on the topic of natural resources, you've certainly heard about the deal to gain control of natural resources in Ukraine for the benefit of America, after we already spent hundreds of billions of dollars in the war effort against Russia. Well, just a couple of days ago, we were told that Ukraine would never accept such a deal. Well, that has apparently changed. Take a look at this.
True that President Zelensky is coming on Friday to meet with you, and is the mineral deal sorted out?
I hear that. I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly, it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal, very big deal. And I think the American people, even if you look at polling, they're very happy because, you know, Biden was throwing money around like it's cotton candy, and it's a very big deal. Look, it could be $1 trillion deal, it could be whatever, but it's rare earths and other things. And look, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukraine and Russia fighting a war that should have never, ever happened. That's a war that would have never happened if I were president. And it didn't happen for 4 years. People say, how do we know that it didn't happen for 4 years? It would have never happened. And nevertheless, this guy went into this situation and he spent money like nobody's ever seen, $350 billion. The other thing that we don't like is that Europe has spent $100 billion. We've spent $350 billion. Europe gets their money back because they spent it in the form of a loan, and we just gave them, whether it's 300 or 350 billion, nobody really knows. They can't even tell me the answer to that. It means probably more than that. So what we're doing is now we're saying, look, we want to be secured. We want to get that money back. We're helping a country through a very, very big problem, a problem like very few people have had. Shouldn't have had this problem because it shouldn't have happened, but it did happen, so we have to straighten it out. But the American taxpayer now is going to get their money back plus.
Their money back plus. You know what's really impressive? Probably is for you as well, but you sit there and you watch Donald Trump, and I'm playing some longer clips today just because you need the meat on the bone from these things to really get an understanding of what's happening. And what's happening is you have a commander-in-chief that's completely in command of the facts and of the situation. All sorts of facts, all sorts of situations, from copper to medical prices to the war in Ukraine, whatever it might be, he is in command of what's happening in this country. And people like it. Now, you're going to hear from the left as they scream, and the Jasmine Crockett's scream and kick and cry, but from polling companies that can be trusted, they show President Trump winning. Mark Mitchell and Rasmussen keep showing the president doing very well as far as his popularity. That seems to be catching on as well because other polls are now showing the same thing. Listen to this.
Having listened to the minority leader, there's something to the effect that
Republicans are focused on things that Americans either don't like or don't care about.
And as he was saying this, I recalled a Harvard-Harris poll conducted just this past week. Trump's policies, huge popularity. Deportation of illegal immigrants who've committed crimes. 81% of the American people, and that includes a lot of Democrats, say that is a very popular position and now being enforced by President Trump. Eliminating fraud and waste in government expenditures. 76% of Americans agree. What have we seen happen with DOGE? What we have seen is actually pointing out fraud.
And the list goes on and on from Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. But what about people? What about the folks that voted for Donald Trump? What do they think now? You know, some of them think that he's doing it just for them, like this young lady.
I voted for Democrats my whole life. They never did anything they promised. They would come to the black church and sing some Negro spirituals with us and then disappear, peer. Once they got our vote, they never did anything they promised. I vote for a Republican once in my life, and this dude done did everything he promised on steroids. He ain't even been in office 2 months, and everything I voted for, I'm getting. It's amazing. Do he sleep? Like this dude, if he sleeps, he wake up on a mission to do what Nakia voted for. He said, Nakia want me to fix that border? I'm on it. Nakia want to make sure them tax dollars is being spent for Americans more than anybody else? I'm on it. Like, this dude wakes up, I feel like, with me in mind.
I find her precious. You want it? Nakia, get it? Boom, done. Nakia wants this, done, boom. And that's what I'm feeling in this country right now. Maybe you are as well. It's like Donald Trump said, hey, what's your checklist? Here it is, boom, 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 boom. And she's just one of the people you find on social media. Oh, and one more thing. If you'd like to move to this country, no problem. Jump to the front of the line, no problem. That is, if you got $5 million in your pocket, you can drop on the deal. President Trump's moving to replace the EB-5 program with the gold card. It's actually pretty smart. It's a way to bring in some serious investment to the United States, with investors putting up $5 million in exchange for that green card. Not only does this bring in a ton of money, but it also gives the country a chance to reduce its deficit and bring in some really talented people. I think it's just another smart move. And look, if you think this is unusual, it's not. Many years ago, I went to New Zealand and I said, what is the the path to becoming a citizen of New Zealand? Just curious. Started with $2 million. That was 20 years ago. So Donald Trump continues to do exactly what he promised, making America great again by strengthening the economy, creating new opportunities, and working for the people like Nakia every single day. Nice to see you here today. After the break, President Trump is targeting taking down Biden's horrible climate policies. We'll have details straight ahead. Progressives panicking just by this conversation we're about to have. I can hear them starting to get nervous. The Trump administration's EPA is aggressively targeting what is seen as the holy grail of the climate agenda, making significant strides into undoing climate policies just 30 days, more than the entire first term. This move comes as a global shift occurs with several countries like Germany, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, Belgium, and more reversing or scaling back their own climate action policies, signaling a growing trend of disengagement from aggressive climate measures and activists worldwide. Joining me now to discuss this is the author of The Great Reset and Climate Depot publisher, Mark Morano, who might be performing a first here on the program. I don't know if we've ever had a guy smoking a pipe here on the program. Mark, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Steve. I'm lecturing students tonight at the University of Southern Illinois talking about climate and energy, so I thought I'd be professorial.
Well, I prefer that. And look, if you put smoke into the air, you're probably part of the problem. Yeah, that pipe probably causes climate change. Yeah, all those problems. So tell me, what is this holy grail that they're targeting to really set off the greenies and the bunny huggers?
Well, what this is called the EPA endangerment finding, which is something that the Obama administration essentially pulled out of thin air and said that carbon dioxide can be regulated under the 1990 Clean Air Act, which there was no mention of carbon dioxide or the climate in the 1990 Clean Air Act. They just arbitrarily said it's a pollutant. Now, humans inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide. In 2009, the Obama administration's EPA decided to regulate what humans exhale from our mouth, carbon dioxide, as a pollutant. And that is what Trump is going after. The underpinning, and that decision by the Obama EPA has been the underpinning of the EV mandates, the gas-powered car bans, all the solar and wind, the Inflation Reduction Act, the regional greenhouse gas initiatives, the net zero, the Green New Deal. This is the underpinning. If Donald Trump's administration can wipe this out, this undoes the entire climate Biden legacy, Biden-Obama legacy.
Well, I think, Mark, I'm going to be very bold here and say the real pollution is the garbage that is spewed by these people in their rhetoric. Look, CO2 when I grew up, and you're probably old enough to remember this, you know what they called CO2 when I grew up? The gas of life. They called it the gas of life because it feeds plants and forests. And without CO2, we wouldn't have the ecosystem or the biodiversity. We'd have none of this. We wouldn't be here. The plants wouldn't be here. It's the gas of life. And suddenly it's a controlled pollutant? Come on now. They say follow the science. In this case, it's all political science because CO2 is the indispensable gas of Earth. That's a fact. Where am I wrong?
You're absolutely right. It is it's again, humans exhale it. And this CO2, if you look at the geologic history of the Earth, we are in the 10% lowest level of CO2 in Earth's geologic history. We're also in the 10% lowest coldest period of Earth's history. In other words, 90% of Earth's history has been warmer with higher CO2 levels. So we are in a CO2 famine, according to greenhouse gas expert Dr. Will Happer of Princeton University. He's a physicist. The idea of this has been a scientific abomination since 2009 when the Obama administration started it. So Trump's EPA is going to reverse this. All hell is going to break loose in corporate media, in academia, in the environmental community, the United Nations. This is what Donald Trump lacked in his first term. This is what we call permanence. He is permanently dismantling the climate legacy of Obama and Biden and Al Gore. Not just a yin-yang. We went from Obama to Trump to Biden. This is going to be permanent. The other thing he's doing is he's going to submit the UN Paris Climate Agreement to the U.S. Senate for a treaty ratification, and that, when it's rejected by the Senate, will make it much harder for the next president to get back in. That's what Donald Trump's looking for. It is a legacy that will not be able to be undone by the next president.
And, you know, I've got this little document sitting next to me every day. It's called the United States Constitution. We haven't entered formally into a treaty in decades, actually, in America. We've done a lot of things and called them treaties, but they're agreements. You have to have 67 votes of the United States Senate to pass a treaty. What is the mathematical odds of getting 67 votes on anything in the U.S. Senate today?
It will be rejected by the Senate. The last time they even put up anything similar was the Kyoto Protocol on climate. I think it was 1997, and it was a 97-0 vote against it. So, it's not going to happen. That is a key thing. And you alluded to it earlier. Every nation from Argentina to Australia to New Zealand to the Netherlands to, whether it's Hungary or Poland, it's unbelievable. The German elections we just had, the blowback against the climate agenda is tremendous. Donald Trump has lit the fire around the world. This is going to be a cultural shift, not unlike we saw in the 1980s compared to the 60s and 70s. I mean, I think the climate scam is finally ending. The whole idea of all these people bean counting and regulating what you eat and how you travel.
Let me tell you how absurd it is. A few years ago, 10 years ago probably, I wrote a column about campfires were going to be banned because of particulate, and the s'mores were going to be illegal. I said it tongue-in-cheek. It turned out that actually happened. They came after open fires, campfires, all of this. And so this is how far gone these people are. Stop it. Greta Thunberg, go back to wherever you came from. Please don't return. Mark, you're doing great work. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, you're right. Even fireplaces, even gas fireplaces, they're going after everything. Right. And that is why the leadership that Trump's providing by changing the narrative has been so important. And that's why this is the most consequential presidency of our lifetime. I truly believe that.
And if you have any questions about what's really happening with what's going on outside, go to the Climate Depot. Look at it online. You'll be glad you did. Mark Morano's got it loaded with things that we call facts. Pesky little things. Mark, thank you as always.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Steve.
Good man. All right, after the break. The IRS just laid off, 6,000 employees, even with it being tax season. What's it going to mean for you? Anything? I doubt it. We'll be back on America's Voice Live. About to reduce its workforce by somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000, maybe 6,700 is not exactly clear, but it's going to happen tomorrow, according to a source with knowledge of the matter. Putting additional pressure on the agency's operations. Some say during this crucial tax filing period, the employees being let go are primarily probationary staff who have typically been with the agency for less than 1 or 2 years and some less. They have fewer job protections compared to the more tenured workers. The IRS currently employs 100,000 people in total, and yet nobody will ever answer the phone. It's the weirdest thing. Joining me now to discuss is the Executive Vice President at the National Taxpayers Union, my friend Brandon Arnold. Brandon, nice to see you here. Look, they're going to tell you, oh my gosh, these 6,000 people, the IRS is just going to be crippled. No, it's not. I don't believe that. Well, what we need to do to update the IRS is better computer systems. How about better customer care? I mean, I'm just going to spitball here, easier forms to fill out, easier tax brackets. I'm just throwing it out there. Do you think this is going to have much of an impact, really?
No, probably not. And let's do some basic math here. The IRS, like you said, has about 100,000 employees currently. We're talking about firing a pretty small number, 7,000 employees. But if you look back to what the IRS had just a few years ago, back in 2023, they had about 83,000 employees. So even if we fire 7,000 from the current 100,000 person workforce, we're still at 93,000. That's 10,000 more employees than they had just a couple years ago. And you mentioned most of these folks are probationary. They're also mostly from the compliance sector of the IRS. The compliance is another word for auditing and enforcement. These are the people that are not necessarily the folks answering the phones or responding to other inquiries. They're the people that are going after everyday Americans, claiming that all of us are guilty until proven innocent when it comes to filing our taxes.
So what is, as we go forward with this administration, We're talking about, and it started yesterday, big vote. They got the budget put through, 217, 215, big, beautiful budget, which means that we're on our way to a reconciliation package, which should mean the 2017 Trump tax cuts become permanent. We've got to stop, putting sunset clauses in these things. We need permanent tax relief in this country. We need lower burden to get into business. We need lower problems and obstacles for business in general. I'm talking small business. 99% of the people who go to work in America go to work in a small business, not one of these big corporations. We need to give these people some help, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. And last night's vote was the first step on what's going to be a pretty arduous journey, but it's critically important because those Trump tax cuts, with the exception of the lower corporate rate, which I'm a big fan of because I do think that helps our businesses compete with China and other countries' businesses, most of these tax provisions expire at the end of 2025. So we could be looking at trillions of dollars in higher taxes next January if Congress can't get its act together and get a really good bill to the president's desk. Last night, we begun that process in earnest, but we really got to get the policy right here, making sure we don't raise taxes on our small business community and on families who can't even afford to pay their utility bills, their mortgages, and so forth these days.
Big challenges ahead. All right, Brandon, so if you were looking at the reconciliation bill and you were advising the president, you said, okay, here are some key things we need in to make sure that mom and dad and the small business owner and the people that are trying to make ends meet can have, as Joe Biden used to say, some breathing room, right? How about we get there? What would you suggest?
Yeah, let's lock in those lower tax rates. Those tax rates are good for everybody, regardless of whether you're making $25,000 a year or you're making 6 or 7 figures. Let's keep those lower tax rates in place. Those help families, those help businesses. And I think the child tax credit was something that's a really pro-family provision at a time when our demographics are shifting, when we need, frankly, to have more people in this country. Again, for a competitive point of view, from just a sustainability point of view, that child tax credit, I think, is really helping Americans deal with the higher cost of living that we've been facing over the past few years. So keep that child tax credit where it is. It was doubled by Trump in the Republican Congress in 2017. Let's lock that in on a permanent basis.
I agree with that. Brandon Arnold, greatly appreciate you being here as always from the Taxpayers Union, National Taxpayers Union. Thank you, sir. We'll talk again soon. Meanwhile, we may have won the election, but the fight to restore the great nation, as you know, is a day-to-day, hand-to-hand combat. Now is the time to take a stand. And you know what? Patriot Mobile leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising or changing on quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It is a call to action to defend our rights and freedoms. I've used it for, going on 2 years now. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all 3 major networks. If you have cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. I mean, where do you get that? But the difference is this. Every dollar you spend supports the Constitution and the things you care about. Veterans, first responders, all of it. And here's a big part of it. Switching is easy. Trust me on this. Switching is easy. I've done it. Keep your number, keep your phone or upgrade if you'd like. Their 100%, get this, U.S.-based customer support team will help you find the perfect plan. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with the promo code RAV. Switch to Patriot Mobile today. Defend freedom with every call and text you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/RAV or call 972-PATRIOT. And yes, they're American-based. You can understand what they're saying. And again, switching is easy. After the break, recent reports show the Department of Education trying to destigmatize child sex work. You heard me right. I'll be right back. United States Department of Education has recently called for the destigmatization of child sex work. It described the American public system as fundamentally racist. Of course they did. A slide in a training session described the importance of sex work to LGBTQ plus survival. Learn to avoid further stigmatizing youth engaged in survival sex work. And a speaker described understanding the importance of sex work. I mean, really? Joining me now to discuss this, a campus reform reporter and student at the University of Florida, but not for much longer. Emily Sturge is here. Emily, you're about to graduate, so you're going to, graduate to something better, but you're still going to be here with us. You told me in the break. So congratulations on staying with where you are in campus reform. But what about this? We want to destigmatize child sex work? Are we going to destigmatize child sex trafficking too? I mean, what am I dealing with here?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This story is so alarming. It's horrific. It's disgusting. It's beyond sickening that federal government employees are talking about destigmatizing child sex work. But unfortunately, this isn't the first time that we've seen ideas like this being spread within the higher education system and the K-12 education system, too. And at the Leadership Institute's campus reform, we're reporting how radical ideas like this, they're rooted in the leftist agenda of gender ideology and sexuality that we see being pushed throughout our education system. And these ideas are seeping all the way down to preschool and kindergartners. Every single American, every single student, every single parent needs to be enraged by this. And every single taxpayer should be absolutely up in arms that our tax dollars are funding this.
So how did this happen? I mean, I saw a video here on social media here in the last couple of days, a parent at a school board meeting that was being held in the library, and they had just said, look, we have an adult section in this high school. And she's like, adult section mean what? Which means basically pornography at a high school library. And she said, can you show me the adult section? And all the people that are at the library and so forth, media expert, not a librarian anymore, a media expert, refused to show the woman. I mean, why do we have this infusion of sexualizing our children from, like you say, very early ages all the way through? Who thinks this is a good idea?
The left thinks that this is a good idea. And these DEI programs, what started off as conversations about skin color, have morphed into something much more terrifying, much more disgusting, that includes concepts as radical as the promotion of child sex work. At Campus Reform, we've reported how academia is promoting these harmful ideologies. We've covered professors talking about gender transitioning for minors. We've even discussed professors who are defending pedophiles. A Johns Hopkins University professor who is a transgender individual is known for defending sexual attraction to children, and the university still went about hiring this individual. Other universities have put on events like Drag Queen Story Hours. We saw that at Oklahoma State University. And marketing these events for children 2 years old to 10 years old. So it's absolutely disgusting that this is what our country has come to, and this is what our education system is teaching our children.
Yeah, I've got a list here. You mentioned one of them there, these drag shows, these drag queen shows in elementary schools, right? Condom machines in elementary schools, really? Christy Nome going after, I think you might have seen this one too, after a couple of hundred folks that have been in these explicit chat rooms, sexual chat rooms. It's sexualization all over this left-wing ideology, and it's look, I'm not a prude, but I don't think a kindergartner needs access to a condom machine or access to a book of My Two Moms or any of this other stuff, right? You just don't need that, because all you're doing is pushing an ideology. Can we fix it, Emily? Can we fix it? That's the real question.
Well, the problem here is that the government and the education system is trying to play the role of a parent in conversations about gender and sex. And fortunately, we are living in an era under the Trump administration of unprecedented access and transparency and accountability. And as sickening as it is to see these things come to light, I think we're very lucky as a nation to have a man in office who is willing to shine light on literally the darkest and most horrifying and most disgusting crevices of government, whether that's the black hole of wasted tax dollars that the Department of Government Efficiency is uncovering, but also topics as dangerous and toxic toxic to children as these topics being discussed at the United States Department of Education.
So, and here's the last part of this. As some of these programs are rolled out, and I don't know how it's going to play out, but I have a pretty good idea. You tell people, stop doing these things. Stop putting, condom machines in elementary schools. And if Donald Trump comes along and signs an executive order, stop putting, adult content in public schools up through high school. There are going to be certain places where the governors or the people that are in charge of these schools say, we're going to do it anyway. There needs to be a penalty beyond just having, your wrist slapped. There has to be something serious that happens to people that push back against federal law and common sense. And I think it needs to happen now. I'll give you the last word.
That penalty needs to be cutting off federal funding. At Campus Reform, a new thing that we're talking about is the state of Maine, how that governor is going against Donald Trump's executive order about men playing in women's sports. And so Donald Trump's response is he's going to cut off federal funding. At Campus Reform, we're looking into where is that federal funding going in Maine. It's going to LGBTQ resources in the classroom. We're uncovering those examples. We're uncovering the deeply rooted LGBTQ and gender ideology narrative that's being pushed in Maine's classrooms. And Maine is just one example of this trend. It's happening in states across the country, and we need to see the federal government cutting off funding going towards these divisive narratives in the classroom.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that Governor Janet Mills is going to realize she bit off more than she can chew there in Maine. We'll find out. Emily Sturge, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. We're going to take a break here in America's Voice Live. Thank you for being here. We'll have more after a short break. All right, so I shared this next little clip on social media. Some loved it. Some really hated it. Really thought it was awful. I'm going to find out what you think. President Trump sharing an AI-generated video on his Truth Social account that garnered nearly 15,000 likes by midnight, has gained more than 1.5 million views on X, and I'm sure it's grown since then. And a lot of folks coming out. A few are saying nice things. We already knew the left had no sense of humor, but I want you to see the video of what Gaza can be imagined as. Here it is.
here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza #1. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza #1.
Trump Gaza #1. What do you think? The Times of Israel reported Trump's proposal for a mass population transfer and infuriates the Arab world when he says he will rebuild Gaza and remove the residents during building. They don't hear they will be allowed back when the building is complete. On Tuesday, opposition leaders presented a day-after plan that extends guardianship of the Gaza Strip to Egypt, which, by the way, Egypt had that territory prior to 1967. Look, I don't understand it. The National Director of Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is firing employees who participated in graphic lurid chats while at work. The City Journal revealed NSA, CIA, and DIA chat logs on IntelliLink discussing transgender fetishes, including genital castration, artificial vaginas, pee fetishes, gangbangs, sex molecules. This is your government money at work, apparently. For over 2 years, the employees chatted on male-to-female surgery, the removal of a penis, vaginal construction, post-op sexual experiences. I mean, crazy stuff. Men wearing spandex, all that stuff, right? Gabbard gave agencies until Friday, tomorrow, to identify and terminate these people. Purge the perverts. She posted on X Tuesday evening, memo sent, we know who they are, action is underway. Gabbard says the intelligence community is refocusing on protecting and securing Americans and abolishing DEI policy. She said the use of government systems consents to monitoring and unauthorized use of prosecution. These troops forget simple basic training. GI means government issue. By signing their name, they gave up their rights and now belong, body and soul, to the United States government in many ways. You can't do that, and you will be called out for it. President Trump's new Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, issued a directive Tuesday restricting access to food stamps with benefits exclusively going to American citizens and legal migrants in this country. Rollins stated the days in which taxpayer dollars are used to subsidize illegal immigration are over. The directive stated the U.S. Department of Agriculture will follow the law, full stop. The Food and Nutrition Service is to immediately clarify and enforce all rules restricting supplemental nutrition assistance programs. That's the SNAP program benefits to U.S. citizens and legal residents only, ensuring no illegal aliens can access food stamps. President Trump's executive order directs federal departments and agencies to identify all federally funded programs providing financial benefits to illegal aliens and to take corrective action. The White House emphasized President Trump is committed to safeguarding federal public benefits for American citizens who are truly in need, including individuals with disabilities and, of course, our veterans. This policy builds on the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1996, passed by Congress and signed into law by whom? Former Democrat President Bill Clinton, prohibiting illegal aliens from receiving federal benefits, including from the SNAP program. The White House estimates Biden's border policy has cost Americans upwards of $450 billion since 2021. I think it could actually be higher. Have you seen the news from economists forecasting a depression, not recession, depression by the year 2030? We are in a perfect storm as Social Security and Medicare hit a breaking point, with the largest generation hitting in retirement. A smaller workforce means a smaller tax base. Pair that with our growing national debt and rising cost of living, and we have a real problem. So what are you going to do now to protect your family for the future? Gold is a safe haven in hard economic times, and Birch Gold makes it easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. Birch Gold will help you transition an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. Protect your future today. Text America to 989898. Get your free information kit on gold and a copy of the Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era. It has a foreword by Don Jr. There is no obligation, all right? Just information. Birch Gold is earned the trust of countless Americans looking to safeguard their savings. You can count on them, too. Text America to 989898 today and find out more. Again, it's free to find out. Coming up after the break, we'll have a story that reminds us of how wonderful America is. Plus, answers to the America's Voice question of the day. Here it is. Since the GOP passed the budget resolution, do you think we'll balance the budget finally? We'll have your answer. Of course, you'll remember this as we talk about what makes this country so wonderful. Back in the end of January the 31st, a plane crash in northeast Philly became a tragedy and a testament to courage all at the same time. A 10-year-old boy, Andre Howard III, a student at Soane's Christian Academy, performed a heroic act in the midst of all this calamity and disaster, saving his younger sister, though it left him severely injured. The crash involving a medical transport jet resulted in the death of 7 individuals, including everyone on board that plane and 1 person on the ground. Over 20 others were injured in the catastrophic crash. Andre's quick thinking, however, has deeply moved the community, prompting efforts to support him and his family during this very difficult time. On that fateful day, he was riding with his father and siblings after being picked up from school when the accident occurred. The family had stopped to grab donuts when the jet went down near Roosevelt Mall. The jet had taken off from northeast Philly, bound for Springfield in Missouri, but tragically lost control and crashed. As debris scattered in all directions, Andre shielded his 4-year-old sister, urging her to get down in the chaos. A piece of debris struck him in the head, leaving him critically injured. The school remains committed to supporting Andre and his family as they navigate this challenging time. Alongside the school's efforts, the Howard family launched a GoFundMe campaign, to help cover Andre's medical costs and other essential needs. Thanks to the kindness of those touched by his story, the campaign has raised $117,000. Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown fulfilled a promise to Andre as well. On Wednesday, Brown visited 10-year-old Andre at the Children's Hospital in Philly, bringing along the Vince Lombardi Trophy as a symbol of support. What makes America wonderful? Great people that will sacrifice for those that they love, and great people like athletes that step up and say, you know what? I can do something right, too. A.J. Brown, class act right there. All right? Nicely done. The America's Voice question of the day. Since the GOP budget has been passed, do you think we'll get to a balanced budget finally? Kathy Nieheisel says, after listening to Elon and POTUS in the cabinet presser, I am in fact optimistic that the budget will be balanced and debt will be greatly reduced. Now, if we can just get Congress out of the way from sabotaging our prosperity. Richard Kramer writes, no, not resolution adds $700 billion of the debt over 3 years. Tam McGregor, I'm hopeful, but I don't know if 4 years is enough. Genesis 20 TC, no, not with the Republicans who are not really working to balance the budget. We know the Democrats don't care about anything except to complain or lie about what DOGE is doing, or they call it unconstitutional to find out where the waste, fraud, and spending is going. That part's true. All right, greatly appreciate you being here again today. Don't forget to start your broadcast day with me right here on Real America's Voice, 6 a.m. I get up early. I got that coffee, circulating my system and ready to go with you. So black coffee, it's hot. The conversation's hot. You should be there. Don't forget to join me here for America's Voice Live tomorrow, and straight ahead here on Real America's Voice, it's bowling. Don't go anywhere.